Welcome back to Comics Cuts Live. We got a great show for you guys today. Let me just get something going. Wanted to make sure we started at 9. Great. All right. There we go. All right, so we got a lot of good things to get into. So let's start with Avengers Doomsday. All over the place. All right. Doom is not only going to save you, Doom is going to save the MCU. So we got a lot of good things to get into. We got potentially our first look at Dr. Doom. So this was the photo from a Marvel advertising event. And if you notice anything similar to it, it looks a lot like this photo from the Spider-Man suit that we originally saw a couple months ago. And it ended up being the same suit for Spider-Man for Brand New Day. So it's very likely that this suit is the actual Dr. Doom suit. How much screen time we're going to get with him in this, I think if this is the legit suit, which I think it is based on the precedence with the Spider-Man suit, we're going to get a lot of screen time with this. So I think that's great, and I think he looks amazing. But listen, they were not going to fumble the Dr. Doom suit, okay? So we got a lot of things to get into with Dr. Doom, Avengers Doomsday, Fantastic Four, and to kick things off, I wanted to show this video. This is the video from the event. It's a little long, but there's a couple things in there that I think is worth taking a look at. So let's let it run for a bit. You can comment, and I'll live comment back with you guys. I think he's going to do the iconic thing. I think we'll see him as God Doom from Secret Wars, but I think for Doomsday he's going to be in the green, especially considering not only this video is mainly green, they're teasing him in green here, but the Doomsday logo is green. So I think we're going to see a lot of green. The score is great. thought that too, but I'm kind of calmed down on that for Fantastic Four, X-Men. Okay, so a couple of things we saw in that, which, first of all, if you have never seen this image before, this is the image from Secret Wars where Doom rips Thanos' spine. It's become very, very famous on social media. We saw that in that light show, and this was that image. We are going to be getting a lot of iconic comic moments. I'm telling you that right now. That is one of the things that the guys at top, the powers that be, have come to understand, that this is something that the fandom wants, and the fandom loves it when they give it to us. It was very successful in Deadpool and Wolverine, when they did the montage of Wolverine variants and they recreated iconic Wolverine and X-Men covers. People have obviously been saying this movie is a comic book come to life, and it's very clear that the studios and powers that be have understood that, and they're trying to make the comic book movies closer to their comic book source material. And this is just more evidence of that, okay? Now, as far as Doctor Doom goes, the thing is that the Russos have released this chalkboard, okay? And they didn't just, this wasn't planned a while ago. This is something that indicates a couple of things. It indicates that they are very aware of the conversations going on online, the fan theories, and everyone trying to read into with the MCU, what threads are being tied into Avengers Doomsday, and how are they going to be handling the incursions. And that is a big topic for today's show, hence why I named it Doom Will Save You and the MCU, the episode name. All right. And, you know, the core villain thing with Doctor Doom is the fact that I don't think the real threat is actually Doctor Doom. I think the real threat is the incursion equations themselves. And Doctor Doom's edge is that he just understands the incursions and the incursion math better than anyone else. And he's going to be turning that knowledge into a weapon. And there's really isn't any true win here. There's just going to be who carries the guilt. There will be a winner in Secret Wars. But remember, I've told you before, guilt is also a key component to Reed Richards. That is one of the most consistent themes of Reed's character through the comics. Basically, every Fantastic Four run has something where it touches on how Reed feels guilty. He feels guilty about the Fantastic Four being impacted by the cosmic radiation in space and being forever changed, especially when it comes to Ben Grimm being a rock. He feels guilty for a lot of things. And you saw that in Fantastic Four First Steps. He felt guilty for the way he thinks with Sue. He felt guilty for suggesting that they should use Franklin Richards as bait for Galactus. There were so many instances in that movie where they played on Reed Richards' guilt. And I'm telling you right now, that's going to become a big part of the upcoming Avengers cycle with Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. However, I do think that with this chalkboard, the Russos purposely injected this into the conversation. And I think they did it because they're very aware that the fandom is pretty split over Doctor Doom. There are probably half of the fans, like myself, who are at the very least happy that RDJ is going to be Doctor Doom and think RDJ is going to blow people out of the water. There's the other half that thinks that this was lazy. It's a cash grab. They should have cast someone else. And I think there is probably a bit of overlap between the two that thinks that some that are happy about it, some that aren't happy about it, but there's an overlap there where people still believe that Doctor Doom is not really Doctor Doom, and he is also some kind of variant of Tony Stark, which I think is ridiculous. I think the casting announcement broke people's brains, and I think if you believe that Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom is not really Victor, but like an adopted version of Tony Stark or anything like that, you're just an idiot, okay? Like, I am not one to go soft with my words. I'm just going to say it how it is. That is a stupid-ass theory. It's dumb, and they have said it 1,000 times. Not only that, but Josh from Den of Nerds, who was a big proponent of that, and he actually had some legitimate theories. Josh is a smart guy. But he said that it is the definitive Doctor Doom, and that's what all the leakers or the scoopers that he speaks to have been saying, and he's heard it from many, many people at this point. And I think it's pretty clear that they are trying to tell us that this is Doctor Doom. It's not infamous Iron Man. I mean, the video we just showed you, it is Doctor Doom. It is Victor Von Doom. But what I think is going on with this chalkboard is that I think they are trying to tie. I think it has something to do with Doctor Doom, because I think that's the one thing. If Marvel and the Russos had the opportunity to change the fans' perspective on anything right now, I think it would be to get people on board with the RDJ Doctor Doom thing. So I think they wanted to throw this into the conversation to lead us into Doctor Doom. But there's something more obvious about the chalkboard, which is obviously that it obviously has something to do with Reed Richards. I think that Avengers Doomsday, because of this chalkboard photo, is going to have Doctor Doom working with Reed Richards to solve the incursions. That's what I think is going to happen in Avengers Doomsday. And I think it's going to be like, the intelligence brothers, the science guys. I think they're going to team up on that, which is going to be really, really interesting, because if you know anything about Secret Wars, then if you've been watching my show for a bit, you definitely do, because I love to talk about Secret Wars, is the fact that Secret Wars is a deep character study where it's really Reed Richards versus Victor Von Doom. But even more than that, what happens is in the beginning of Secret Wars, there's the final incursion, which is from the main universe, which is the 616. And then it's the final incursion from 1610, which is the Ultimates universe, the original Ultimates universe. So that final incursion, I'm sure, is going to happen. But Secret Wars exists on Battleworld, and Battleworld is a planet where Doctor Doom uses the powers of Molecule Man to take scraps from Earths that have died from incursions and form a new planet for all the survivors to live on. But here's the catch. Doctor Doom becomes God Emperor Doom, which Hungry Almighty had mentioned. Doctor Doom becomes God Emperor Doom. He convinces Reed Richards' family died from the final incursion. However, there's another Richards family where it's Sue, Valeria, and Franklin, and Doom convinced them that they are his family. And Reed gets to Battleworld a little later, and of course, he is like, eventually when they face off in the last issue, he's basically like, you stole my life, you stole my family, you stole everything, and it's really crazy. So if my theory is correct, and we see Reed Richards and Doctor Doom working together in Avengers Doomsday to be arch enemies in Avengers Secret Wars, I think this solves a large number of the problems. I think it solves the problem of what Hungry had also mentioned before, and this is why I said that to you, Hungry, is that, I was not happy that we're just going to be meeting Doctor Doom really for the first time in the beginning of Avengers Doomsday, and I didn't like that there really wasn't going to be a pre-existent relationship that we've experienced from Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, because Reed Richards and Dr. Doom, they went to college together. They've known each other forever. It's the biggest rivalry in Marvel Comics. And, we needed some more history there that we've experienced. So I think they're going to solve that problem in Avengers Doomsday by making Reed and Doom work together, which, by the way, just because they're working together does not mean they get along about every little thing. I promise you, there is going to be some bickering. There is going to be some disagreement. It's not going to be, they're not going to be best friends and all kumbaya. I could promise you that. But they're going to be working together, and then it's going to lead to Secret Wars where they are out for each other's necks, okay? So that is my theory, and, I think Doom, listen, the thing about Doom is he doesn't like to get help. He does not, he's very egotistical. There are comic storylines where he makes the wrong move because Reed Richards did help him, and he believes that because Reed offered help, that help isn't actually pure intention, and it's actually something that's manipulative. So Reed goes against the contributions, Doom goes against the contributions of Reed in order to do what he thinks is the right thing. But Reed actually was trying to help because Reed isn't egotistical and doesn't let pride get in the way, just the way Dr. Doom does. So I think that's going to be interesting. And, Doom will probably ask for Richards' help, or Richards will ask Doom for help. It's more than likely it's Reed that asks for Doom's help. But we do know a lot of this storyline is really about Doom trying to figure out who caused the incursions, how did they do it, and he has a bit of vengeance against the ones who did. All right, so I got more there, but let's get to some chats. I don't like to let the chats sit for a while. I try to get to you guys as soon as possible. So, all right. I've seen this theory going around, and it wouldn't shock me if Marvel did this. But Franklin will be the key to the reset reboot. So I have something on Franklin as well. There's something interesting on Franklin here too. I know that moment is iconic, but I don't want to see Thanos return to job for Doom. You can make Doom a threat without doing that. By the way, I agree. Like, I really don't care to see Thanos return. I don't need to see that scene. I think that's more for people who just like hype over anything. I agree, but I do think we're going to see it. However, I'm not opposed to seeing it, but I don't need to see it. Like, if it's not in the movie, it's not a big deal for me. Modern Saviors, bro. Welcome to the chat. Follow Modern Saviors on X. Great account. I don't know much about Marvel, but I never knew how much of a factor guilt is in these characters. Oh, yeah. Especially with Reed, bro. Greed is like the big thing for Reed's character. And Reed felt they showed this in the movie of Fantastic Four First Steps, but in the comic Coming of Galactus, his guilt for Galactus coming to Earth was much bigger, but they did show a bit in the movie. I think Hungry Almighty, I think RDJ will crush it. Oh, and Modern Saviors also is a YouTuber. His YouTube page is great too, so definitely check that out also. Hungry Almighty, I think RDJ will crush it, but at the same time, I can see why it's a problem, because even I have to say that Marvel casting RDJ was somewhat controversial because why cause unnecessary backlash? I agree. I think the big thing about the RDJ decision was that I think Marvel was scared of the box office issues. I think they're scared by some of the issues they've been facing in the multiversal saga. And it's not like, I don't think they simply hired RDJ again because of hype. I think a lot of people get it wrong and think RDJ was hired just because of his name and for the hype of his name attached to an Avengers movie. I think they hired him because they trust him. They trust him to make an Avengers movie that is successful because he's done it so many times. If the whole reset is true, it definitely is, by the way. How? Because Kevin Feige has said so. How do you see Secret Wars ending? We are in the new MCU, and we see the certain characters recasted, or will they leave it open-ended? I think that they are going to show some of the new cast in the end of Secret Wars, 100%. Because when Kevin Feige said that, he also said that Secret Wars, like he was like, Endgame was about endings, but Secret Wars is about beginnings. So that's why I think that. All right. Now, the other interesting piece for Avengers Doomsday is that, so I think that I think Doctor Doom, when he came to, when Doctor Doom came to the Baxter Building at the end of Fantastic Four First Steps, I think a lot of that was for the Power Cosmic. I think Doctor Doom is after the Power Cosmic because he wants the Power Cosmic to travel the multiverse. He wants the Power Cosmic to, not that that's going to do it off its own, but it's going to help him. And I think it's going to help him. I think he mainly wants the Power Cosmic to fight the incursions. But I also think he went there to see Sue and Reed. I don't think he was just looking to see Franklin. Franklin is 4 years old, and he was with Franklin, but he was clearly waiting to talk to Sue. Sue was right around the corner of that pole that he was behind, and he already had Franklin like right there, and he was clearly waiting to talk to Sue. So I think that's a big piece too. But the casting documents have shown that for the Avengers Doomsday movie, they were looking for an actor between the ages of 10 and 14 years old to play Franklin Richards. So that means there's going to be some kind of time jump and I think this time jump is only for the Fantastic Four. I think that everything in the main 616, 199, whatever number our main sacred timeline universe is, I don't think that timeline is going to have a time jump. But I think that the Fantastic Four are going to have a time jump because that was in the 60s, and we saw Franklin Richards, who was just born, but then the post-credit scene was like 3 or 4 years later. It can't be in the 60s or even the 70s, and the Fantastic Four are going to be in Avengers Doomsday. So I think when the Fantastic Four travel to our universe, that's how they're going to explain the time jump. That's my theory. I think they're just going to say universes, they go through time differently. So it could be a different year in a different universe. And I think they're going to make it super easy, not complicated, and keep it simple. Hungry Almighty. Imagine Spidey waking up after Secret Wars, thinks it was a dream, but then sees the news and sees the new Tony Stark. Aunt May calls him, and he's surprised she's alive. Spidey is the only one that remembers. That would be crazy. But I do think he's going to be in Secret Wars. Like, I 100% think he's going to be in Secret Wars. That would be really cool if they did. You know who would be cool to see them do that with? Is Captain America. Because Captain America's whole thing is being the man out of time, because he's from the 40s, he was on ice, and next thing you know, he wakes up in the modern day. It would be on brand to do that with Captain America. Spider-Man, I think he's going to need to be in the movie. All right. So a couple other things. Gwyneth Paltrow was spotted in London, okay? I am convinced now now I am even more convinced that Iron Man is going to be in Avengers Doomsday. Because what the hell is Gwyneth Paltrow doing in London? And I think she was even with the cast. Hold on, I meant to include the photo, but let me see if I have the picture. I don't. But Gwyneth Paltrow was in the. I have another picture we need, though. So Gwyneth Paltrow was in London. I think she is involved in Avengers Doomsday. I also think that her being in London and like taking a photo and uploading it, whether it was her or someone else, I don't think that was by accident. I think that was intentional. And if you've been watching my show, you know my theory on why I think Iron Man is going to be in Avengers Doomsday. Listen, basically the short of it is they're bringing back the Fox X-Men from the early 2000s. They're bringing back all the old, I said the X-Men. They're bringing back, now we know they're bringing back Chris Evans. They already have RDJ on set, and they're paying him $100 million for 2 movies. Box office is down. I think it's very obvious that RDJ is playing Iron Man in addition to Doctor Doom. I think everyone else is so caught up in their Doctor Doom is a variant of Iron Man theories that they're missing what's right in front of them, and that is the fact that RDJ is simply just playing Doctor Doom, and he's playing Iron Man. You know, Tobey Maguire was also spotted in London, and that's interesting too. I don't think Tobey is going to be in Avengers Doomsday, though. I think it's possible, but that redacted guy on Twitter actually said that Tobey and Andrew are being saved for Avengers. He didn't say which Avengers, if it was Doomsday or Secret Wars or both. I think that's much more likely. I don't think they're going to be in Brand New Day, but I could see them being in Doomsday and or Secret Wars. Again, like, if you think there's a chance someone is going to be in Avengers Doomsday, it's almost more than likely that they are. They're bringing everybody back. And just because someone's in a movie doesn't mean they're going to have a lot of screen time. John Krasinski was Reed Richards for like 2 seconds in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. And that movie had probably a lot of cameos or short appearances or whatever, but it didn't have nearly the amount of characters as Avengers Doomsday. Tobey and Andrew will be in Secret Wars, but not Doomsday. Comments Hungry Almighty. I could see that too. I think that makes more sense. So a lot of actors are making comments in the press, like David Harbour saying, that's Red Guardian, says Avengers Doomsday is going to be really good. The Russo brothers have a special sauce. There's something about the layers in which they put the comedy and the drama and the surprise and the scale and the epicness and all that stuff. It's incredible. Channing Tatum says Avengers Doomsday will be huge. When I say a huge movie, it's like an understatement. I don't have a word big enough. I'm not good enough with words to explain how big this movie will be. It's going to blow people's minds. And Ryan Reynolds, when asked if he will return as Deadpool in Avengers Doomsday, I cut off part of the quote, but the only part I really wanted to say was he said, "Nor have I stepped foot on set." I think that this is very intentional. I think that Marvel's working with publicists who are working with the actors, and they are being assigned things, not exactly what to say, but pretty close of what to say probably, and who to say it to and when to say it, because so much is on the line for this movie that I'm telling you right now, those quotes, these aren't natural. And that's okay. Listen, it's show business. Like, they got to do this kind of stuff. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying the trades aren't like, oh, let's interview about Avengers Doomsday. Marvel is like, hey, Variety, we need you to talk to Channing Tatum today, and Entertainment Weekly, we need you to talk to David Harbour tomorrow. That's what's going on here, okay? I have a cool idea on how Battle World can be introduced to the audience in Secret Wars, but I doubt Marvel will do it. Please share, Hungry. I'd love to hear what your idea is. I'm sure it's good. All right. While Hungry is working on sharing his theory, we got to talk about Spider-Man. So, My Time to Shine said the symbiote is going to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Do you guys want to see symbiote in Spider-Man Brand New Day? I feel like everyone's going to say yes. People love symbiote. People love Venom. People might not like all the Venom movies, but people love the idea of symbiote. I think the symbiote in Brand New Day would be interesting. It's interesting because they set up the post credits from Spider-Man No Way Home and Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, to tease a Venom and Spider-Man crossover. And obviously that didn't happen. It's never happened. And this is the next Spider-Man movie. We've been talking about Punisher. We've been talking about Hulk. We've been talking about villains. We've been talking about Sadie Singh. But symbiote has kind of flown under the radar for at least most of the conversation. But we know that the main villain is someone that is supposedly manipulating Spider-Man, Hulk, and Punisher to be fighting each other. However, they also say that the villain isn't going to be Mr. Negative, but it's someone who is, I think they've said it, Asian, or at least that they were using a lot of samurai style Asian henchmen, designs from some of the like samurai type armor. But I don't know. I think that the villain is going to be someone like Wilson Fisk or Norman Osborn. I think it's, the more I think about it, the more I think it's Wilson Fisk, just because they've built up Wilson Fisk so much already in the MCU since they got the Daredevil rights or whatever. Like, they had Wilson Fisk in the end of Hawkeye. They had Wilson Fisk in Spider-Man Brand New Day. And he's the kind of villain that could manipulate those three to be fighting each other. And Punisher was in Daredevil Born Again. So I think that the stars are aligned for Wilson Fisk. That is my call. I am predicting that Wilson Fisk is the big bad of Spider-Man Brand New Day. All right, so Hungry's theory. Probably reaching, but I don't think Tony will be in Doomsday, but will be in Secret. If you look at titles, Doomsday is green, representing Doom. Secret is red and gold, representing Iron Man. It's a good theory. Let me see something. The thing about it, though, is that the Secret Wars logo from the comics is the same colorway. So that's the only thing. Hold on, I'm trying to get a picture of it. Give me a second. That's not it, but we're going to talk about that. Right. Bear with me. All right, I got it. So this is the Secret Wars logo. So that's the only thing I would say for your theory that I'm not sure about. However, it still could mean two things at once. All right. By the way, I don't really think that Deadpool belongs in Avengers Doomsday. I think they're putting him in there because Avengers uh, Deadpool and Wolverine did so well. But I do think that like he's just a joke of a character. He's like, I'm fine with some humor, but he brings too much. And then when he's in a scene, it's almost like he demands it to be a different way than the type of scenes I want out of Avengers Doomsday. You know what I mean? That wasn't my creative idea. It's the two chats before that. Oh, okay. Tom Spidey wakes up in a battle world and all of a sudden he's attacked by Marvel zombies. He tries to escape but is about to be eaten. Two webs latch onto his hands and he's rescued by Tobey. That would be really cool. That would be really cool. I would love to see that. And that's like how you first uh, get introduced to Tobey and Andrew being in Secret Wars. That would be dope. And I think Marvel Zombies is going to do really well. By the way, uh, I shouldn't say do really well in terms of performance, but I do think fans are going to really like it. That's what I meant to say. I think it will be received very well. All right, now also, so Star Lord is supposedly building a new team in the MCU. Like this is something I love. Star Lord is so much more to Marvel than just the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's just such a great character. I would love to see him working with Nova. Him and Nova teaming up, like this current Imperial comic that they got going on that Hickman's writing. Him and Nova teaming up is so sick. And Nova is such a great character. I used to think Nova was overrated and kind of whack. And this Imperial comic got me to really change my mind on Nova. He's really cool. By the way, that's like the thing about reading comics is you get to experience these characters more than people who just watch the movies, And if you didn't read comics, you wouldn't have ideas like that because you don't think like that. So it's pretty obvious when you steal them from someone else. Okay. Probably reaching, but I don't think Tony will be. We did that one. And then, okay, we did that. All right. All right. So now we're going to get to DC. So DC. So, man, DC's got a lot of things that are revisiting this Man of Tomorrow. Like, listen, it was cool in the moment for me because, like, I love comics and I love the comic book art. But the more that I think about it, I don't know if this was the right way to announce this movie, and I don't know if it was the right time to announce this movie. I'm not saying I'm not excited for this movie, and I don't think it's going to be incredible. I love Superman. I love Lex Luthor. I love that they're teaming up. I think that's going to be a really, really cool movie, especially with Lex wearing the power suit. And, now I love David Corn Sweat as Superman. I love Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. However, like there are traditional ways that things are done in Hollywood, and there are reasons that it's done consistently. And Josh from Denim Nerd was talking about this too. So I want to make sure I give him credit for that. But like, it's kind of weird that he announced this on Instagram on a random weekday when he used comic book art. And it was like, and I thought this in the moment too. I was like, it's kind of weird they did this like weeks after they released Superman on digital. If they did it like right when they released Superman on digital to kind of inject some hype into the sales of Superman, I could understand. But this seems to me like, could you imagine Marvel having a character like Superman and announcing their sequel on an Instagram story in the middle of a work day when people were working? Like, Kevin Feige would not do that. And if Kevin Feige did that, most people would call it a fumble. All right, let's call a spade a spade. I just think it's weird. And then he went on Howard Stern. First of all, I cannot stand Howard Stern. All right, I cannot stand him. But it's weirder than that. And I've actually met him. He's actually a pretty nice guy in person, I got to say. But whatever. I don't like his show. I also think it's ridiculous that like it's on Sirius. Sirius XM is a joke. And what comic book fans are listening to Howard Stern? Like when James Gunn goes on Howard Stern, I don't understand what audience they thought they were targeting. It just makes no sense to me, All right, no doubt, Hungry. Thanks for letting me know. But I'll be back next. We're doing the show next week, so I'll post about that and all that. All right, so yeah, I just don't understand why they would announce it on Instagram and on why are you going on Howard Stern, bro? Like Happy, Sad, Confused as a podcast to go on and talk about it. That makes sense to me. A podcast makes one, but I don't think you could just listen to Sirius XM unless you subscribe. And they keep raising the price to subscribe to it. I don't know anyone who subscribes to Sirius XM when you just listen to podcasts or YouTube. It's an obsolete brand. It's an obsolete service. It just makes no sense. But he did say a couple of interesting things. He said that, first of all, Supergirl star Millie Alcock is the best casting he's ever done, which I think is a very, very bold statement because James Gunn is really good when it comes to castings. I don't think he's ever had a bad casting, actually. And to say that Millie Alcock is the best casting after you just hit it out of the park with Superman and Lex Luthor's casting, that's crazy to me. So it's hard to say because we haven't even seen a trailer of Millie Alcock, and that one scene at the end of the post-credit, I'm not going to fully judge her on that one scene. So I question if he's doing this to just hype up Supergirl because it happens to be their next movie, or if he really, really believes that. The other thing he said was that he relates to Lex Luthor more than Superman. Listen, I think I said, I was kind of joking, but not really. When I first watched Superman, I almost wanted to root for Lex Luthor just because I thought he was such a good character and they did such a good job. So, but bro, that so many people are looking for ammo to criticize you on That was not a smart thing to say, especially with the Snyder Cult. You know, the other thing, though, is the fact that Howard Stern said the same thing. He was like, I relate to more to Lex Luthor as well, which I'm not so surprised to hear, Mr. Howard Stern. All right. So we got a couple of other things, and then we're going to wrap it up. And this is all DC. So for DC, they have this that was from the Clayface set, okay? The Flying Graysons. And if you don't know, this is a reference to Dick Grayson's family, who were the Flying Graysons. And, you know, he lost his family because of the tragic accident. So this means that Nightwing is pretty much confirmed for the DCU, which many were hoping for. Many suspected Hungry left, but I know Hungry wanted to see Dick Grayson in Batman the Brave and the Bold alongside Batman and Damian Wayne. For those of you that aren't aware, Dick Grayson was Robin and then becomes Nightwing. So pretty cool. I like Nightwing. I think Nightwing's a great character. I can't wait to find out who's playing Nightwing. But more importantly, I want to know who is playing Batman. Everyone wants to know about the DCU Batman. And now we know that we're getting Nightwing. And I'm starting to think that the DCU Batman announcement, if it doesn't come soon, I question if they really are going to be just delaying Batman for the DCU and giving the Batman Part 2 more room to breathe and not interfere with that. And if that's the case, I don't like it. I don't like that. I think the DCU needs Batman, and I think they need Batman as soon as possible. But it's possible September 20th, which is Batman Day, we get a Batman announcement. If it's also possible we get some kind of Batman announcement related only to the Batman Epic Crime Saga, which is the Batman universe's name. I want a DCU Batman announcement. I want to know who's playing him. I want to know when the movie is coming out. I think we need that sooner than later. Because when I think about the DCU Man of Tomorrow announcement, what bothers me is that I know they were going to make a sequel to Superman. Obviously, they're going to make a sequel to it. It's a little different than a direct sequel. I understand that. But I want to hear about newer characters that I'm dying to see. I want to hear about what their positions are on the slate. I want to hear about Batman. I know Flash and Aquaman are being pushed down the line, and that makes sense. But, other than Green Lantern, who else am I, so excited to see in the DCU that I know is at least announced in the original slate is Batman. And Batman's got to come sooner than later. But what bothered me about the Man of Tomorrow announcement was that, I want to hear about newer characters coming to the DCU, even if it's a deeper cut character, like maybe Mr. Miracle or someone, But when you're doing such a big announcement and it's about characters we just got a movie about, I want this DCU to expand with other characters. And I want to hear about newer characters coming to the DCU rather than just hearing about Superman and Supergirl and this and that. But I guess it is the Superman saga. So, all right. And the other tease on the Clayface set is Black Canary. So this was really cool to see. Black Canary is a fan favorite. People really love. Hold on. So people love Black Canary. She was a fan favorite in Arrow, but she's really cool in the comics too. and she is obviously very powerful. Her powers are really cool. So it's cool to see. Like, this is the kind of thing I like to see, newer characters that are kind of being confirmed through set photos. That I like. That I like. All right. And now we're going to talk about the last thing of the night. And this is something I think everybody is getting wrong. So it was revealed today that Paramount is preparing a bid to buy Warner Brothers. Now, everyone online was like, well, that's stupid because Warner Brothers isn't trying to sell. No. That's not how this works. Warner Brothers had a rough patch, and they had a really good year. And David Zaslav has been very successful this year with Warner Brothers. Hats off to him. Gotta respect it. But what you're failing to understand in these bids is that even if they're not planning on selling, if Paramount makes a bid that some of the investors and shareholders like, do you know what that will do? That will cause a shakeup. That will cause conflict, internal conflict, because there's going to be some of the powers that be at Warner Brothers that want to sell. And if it's a good price, now those people who want to sell have a good argument. And they have to at least hear it out if it's in the interest of investors and shareholders. So Paramount preparing a bid is actually very smart. And you might be thinking, oh, well, it's stupid to do it now because they had a good year, so they're going to have to get a higher price. No, that's what makes it so smart, because the investors and shareholders of Warner Brothers are going to be emotionally attached to the timing of it, because they know that this might be the best price they'll ever be offered. They don't know if they're going to have a year like this in the near future. So it puts pressure on the timing of the offer. Actually brilliant. Now, they got a lot of big brands at Warner Brothers. They have DC, they have Harry Potter, they have Game of Thrones, and The Sopranos. They have a huge, huge number of successful IP there. What do you think happens if Warner Brothers sells to Paramount? Now, that's where James Gunn's job gets interesting, because us as DC fans, we've been waiting for someone like James Gunn to get a job like this for such a long time. It's like, it's almost annoying if this happens, because now we're going to have to worry if James Gunn is going to keep his job. And I'm just telling you right now, like, there's a chance he doesn't. I think it's more than likely he does keep his job, but he better hope that they like what he's doing and the moves he's making, because if they don't, and they do buy Warner Brothers, James Gunn's job could potentially be in jeopardy. Like, if Paramount buys Warner Brothers, they could decide to get rid of James Gunn. I'm telling you that right now. Listen, I'm going to always keep it real with you. I'm always going to tell you the full picture. I'm good at that. I'll take a step back and see the big picture. Just because I think it's possible that happens, that doesn't mean that's what I want to happen. I like James Gunn. I think James Gunn is going to be successful with fans with the DCU. I don't agree with all the business decisions being made. And that's where Peter Safran's supposed to be coming in. So I don't know what's going on. Like, this Man of Tomorrow announcement, it's weird. It was weird the way they did that. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely possible that Paramount prepares this bid, and a good amount of investors and shareholders of Warner Brothers are going to feel the pressure because of the timing. It works in Paramount's favor that Warner Brothers had a good year. Don't get it twisted. All right. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Kevco, what's good, bro? So Paramount will run some numbers. Let's put his comment up. So, all right, we're going to stay a couple minutes. Paramount will run some numbers, see what DC brings in, then figure out if they should keep or fire James. I agree. I also think they're going to look at the slate and they will try to guess how the upcoming slate will perform, but it's definitely interesting because it's like we've waited so long for them to finally try to do it right with DC, and it feels like that just started. And I really hope if Paramount buys Warner Brothers and they're successful with it, I hope they keep James Gunn around. I'm telling you that right now. I really do. I think James Gunn is the guy. I do think that someone, Peter Safran, needs to rein him in a bit on some of the marketing and the decisions. But when it comes to the creative direction and all that, I do think he's the guy. I will tell you, though, I also think that the Batman thing really isn't his fault. I think that I think that they're not telling us everything about Batman. I think that they wanted to do the DCU, and they know that the DCU needs Batman, but they're not willing to let that interfere with the Batman epic crime saga because it's such a big cash cow for them. It would be one thing if the Penguin didn't do well, and then maybe they could be like, okay, you know what? The Batman did well. Penguin didn't. Maybe we'll just scrap it and do Batman for DC. But the Batman did $700 million, being the first installment in this universe. And I think that they know the DCU needs Batman, but they want to protect the Batman epic crime saga at the same time. And they want to cash in on that as much as they can. And I think in order to do that, they need to release that movie, and they need to release that movie and give that movie time to breathe and sell in theaters, on digital, on HBO Max, and all that. And then they want to give us DCU Batman. I also think they're worried that if DCU Batman comes out first, it could interfere with the Batman. So that's the thing about the Batman, and it's a very complicated situation. James Gunn got the kind of job that people like him dream of, but it didn't come on a silver platter. It came with a lot of complications. It came with the complications of the Snyder cult. It came with the complications of the damage to the DC brand from the DCEU. And it came at a time where Batman, this new Batman epic crime saga, just got its feet off the ground and is absolutely crushing it. And now he's got to deal with that contention as well. So again, dream job in a very, very difficult set of conditions. That's all I got. If anyone's got anything else you want to talk about, you can shoot it in the chat. If not, I'm going to wrap it up in 10 or 20 seconds. All right. Thanks again. Good night. I will be back next week, Tuesday and Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, both times. Oh, yeah, bro, enjoy that. It seems like it's getting a good response. So, I'll post it. Kevco said, time to go watch your video with Slav. So I did a video with Slav, the guys over at a podcast called Lethal Geeks, just put out a bunch of misinformation. And Slav was like, hey, could you do this video with me? And I was like, absolutely. So we did a video. We had a good amount of fun. What was supposed to be a quick 10, 15-minute video ended up being a half-hour video. So, yeah, it was fun, though. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think, Kev. Yeah, everyone who's watching, go check out Slav's page because it's up there right now. All right. Peace.